the assets discussed in the Pandora Papers by African Censored, African Censored's John Allan-Amoh, it was the product of the International Corporation of Journalists, investigative journalists the world over. When President Kenyatta responded to those allegations, he welcomed the transparency and accountability that they foster, but he said he would further explain that their defense has been that he has done, or rather his family has done nothing illegal. But there are those who argue that there is a morality question. How do you charge so much in taxes and then are perceived to be attempting to evade
and carry the whole money out of the country? Obviously, that's quite unfair. That's quite unfortunate. But what I was trying to say, you know, I am speaking from the background, like I'm an advocate. And I believe in evidential value of every statement I make or people make. And I know there's a lot of politics around it. And the money, Olive, is too much. I have never spent even a minute to write about it in any of my social media handles. Why? I mean, not only that I would like to make that kind of money, but the fact that it has broadly been said that he is aware that his family has stuffed this money out, and he himself has participated. You will note that in the Kenyatta family, there is what Uhuru Kenyatta probably has made now, and there is what was made before or by the time he was being born. So this is what I'm saying. I don't know what portion of that amount or money has been kept somewhere where it is exempted from you know the tax laws in the country. Once that is proved, then we will be able to say, and that's why we expect the president to come out clearly and say no or yes, what was kept, I was not in charge. What has been kept and what I have also kept out is this much. Once that is clarified, we can then say, no, we condemn anybody making money in Kenya, but keeping it outside where it is not taxed.
Okay.
Well, I think the fundamental questions that Ishmael is not addressing, and because he's a lawyer, one would excuse him. There are two questions. Is it illegal? It's not illegal. It's a moral question. And the moral question comes from the fact that you are the president, you are the head of state. Your principal responsibility is to market Kenya as an FDI destination. So instead of marketing...
Sorry, FDI standing for?
I mean, to attract foreign direct income into Kenya. But instead of you marketing Kenya so that you get the foreign direct income, you are actually taking money from your country and sending it to another country. So for the international investors, they will begin to ask questions. Does this mean that President Kenyatta has no faith in the economy that is leading, that is taking money outside? That is how one may look at it from an international perspective. But again, the second question is it in fact President Kenyatta who took out the money, or it's the family? You know, it could be family resources and is listed as a beneficiary. So if your parents are rich and they've got accounts all over and you are listed as a beneficiary, I don't think there's anything wrong you've committed. But another question we must ask, these accounts, have they grown up? Are they becoming fat from the time he took office? Because there's a probability that in fact you'd be giving money to the person who opened the account, and the accounts are getting fat by the day. So that is the kind of transparency we expect him to come and tell us, that when I took office, these accounts were valued at, those figures are, they're out of, they appear obscene, maybe say 5 billion. And it has remained 5 billion to date because I'm merely listed as a beneficiary. But if he took over and the accounts were 5 billion, and today they are 50 billion, then Kenyans have got this unique opportunity to start asking questions. So in as much as there is no criminality, it's not illegal, but it's a moral question that you are leading a nation and you have no faith in your own leadership. But this thing must not be limited only to President Kenyatta. We must look at all these public servants of rank. We look at these politicians and find out how much resources have they kept outside the nation. You would remember there are a number of prominent personalities who are in the energy sector at some stage. They cut deals and resources were deposited in those offshore accounts. So we need to have that transparency. And you know, the Public Service Commission, the regulations prohibit this kind of things unless you've got express authorization by the commissioners to do this. So in my view, it's a moral question, and moral questions are just addressed by philosophers. But as a normal Kenyan called Mura, I may want to ask President Kenyatta, is it that you have no faith in your own leadership? And if he says that, wait a minute, I'm merely listed as a beneficiary, then would want to ask, have you requested the person who opened the account to close that account so that the resources come back to Kenya. Because, you know, these amounts of money we're talking about, if they come to the Kenyan banking sector, they would even assist us in managing our interest rates. There'll be a lot of liquidity in Kenya. You recall, when President Kibaki took office, he came up with very exciting monetary and fiscal policies, and you found bankers selling money in the streets. You know, they were really chasing you. Take a car loan, take a mortgage, take a soft loan, you know, all manner of loans. There's a very high chance that all these Kenyans, all these prominent families, if they bring back that resource in Kenya, then there'll be liquidity, and we'll go back to the Kibaki era whereby banks don't feel good with their resources.
Okay. And Wakili, you have said, show me yes, the evidence.
Olive,
show me the evidence.
Let me
ask you this. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
One way in which we can access said evidence is by way of lifestyle audits, right?
Correct.
President Uhuru Kenyatta said, kama mfanyikazi number 1, it will start with him. This is a perfect opportunity.
Are you still waiting for that?
This is the perfect opportunity, because I know that when public servants take office, they're required to make wealth declarations. But accessing those documents has proven quite the onerous task.
You know, in my view,
those relates to right to data, you know.
Right,
no, in my view, those declarations are a complete waste of time, because you declare your wealth in secrecy, and then when you leave office, you live with the same forms in secrecy. So we never get to know the movement. In my view, we must raise the bars and say that if you are going to be a public servant, we must know your net worth. You recall a few days ago, the deputy president indicated at some stage his net worth was 100 million. Right now, we don't know what it is. If you're going to occupy this public space, you must know that when you breathe, Kenyans need to know this. When you buy a new car, when you buy a new chopper, people need to interrogate, because one of the biggest incentives for people to get into public office is not to serve morale, is to buy properties in Malaysia, to buy properties in London, using Mura's resources. Okay. That's why these Kenyans are crying in the villages.
All right. And Wakili, let me ask you this. Let me just add one more thing. Yes. When the president talked about subjecting himself to a lifestyle audit, and he said, you know, whether the property be in the name of your mother, he said wife or child, will still find out. And Kenyans should then be able to report those who are living a lifestyle that is not commensurate with whatever income they make. But how do we know as Kenyans? How do we report you when we don't have access? If we don't have access to this information?
Yes, Olive, we are coming from somewhere. Before we saw the story about the Bandora letters, we came from somewhere. There was a question in Parliament, and somebody had to answer extensively security and the logistics of guarding somebody. And at the end, he delved into how much this person owns in the country, and it went all the way to expose what probably we were not aware of. Then now came the Pandora letters. My point, actually, which I'm not supporting at all, that people can keep money in the tax havens outside the country, but I would like us to work on a policy that does not direct only to two people, whether they are the leaders, whether it's president, deputy president, the former prime minister, and all that. We want the whole public service, the whole public sector, to declare their wealth, let their wealth be known. That which has been made while in office can be taken away as well. So when you talk about Pandora papers, Pandora letters only now, obviously, according to my humble view, you are delving into the politics of an issue rather than the facts that are surrounding that particular problem. So Uhuru Kenyatta might be having investments outside the country, of course. Raila Odinga might be having investments out of the country. And William Ruto might have a lot of investments out of the country. But that is only going to shield the rest of us who may be having so much money out of the country. And we will never discuss about them because we are now focusing on the head of state and his deputy and the Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So my proposal would be, it is across the board. Yes, talk about Pandora letters, talk about the properties owned by William Ruto, talk about Raila Odinga. It does not cushion us or stop us from going down the principal secretaries, the cabinet secretaries, and everybody else in the government and public sector. So when we get hooked into discussing a particular issue because some certain journalists have come up and actually investigated correctly so, then we are forgetting that there is a huge area covering several technocrats in the government. And these are the cartels that actually